Welcome to From Pitch to Pontoon. Hi and welcome to today's episode of From Pitch to Pontoon. Today we're joined by Jason Pittock from Jason Pittock. He's an SEO expert, and today we're going to be looking at how SEO can be leveraged for your parks and marinas and how we're going to enter into an AI first world as we go through and what effects that's having on your website and your content and how we can look at improving that. So hello Jason, thank you for joining me today.
Calum. Yep, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Before we get into the nitty gritty of it, do you want to tell us a little bit about your SEO coaching journey and what led you into sort of AI first content? You describe SEO as learning it as a science. So how has that all come about?
Yeah, thanks. For first of all, just really brief intro. I've been doing SEO for the past 10 years, mainly focused on technical. Initially kind of being in the online space, doing kind of building websites, dabbling in the development space. And then SEO was always something I was just interested in natively, because I think when you think about search in I'd say the early 2012, 2013s, it's very different to how we look at search today. And it always sparked my interest. And I think the transition and the transformation of search has also been very exciting. And due to this, throughout my career, I've worked in businesses, in organizations as a strategic, in SEO innovator or working on the SEO projects, as well as a consultant, as an external consultant. And today I've built a very small SEO service business. We're more of like a one-to-one versus a one-to-many. And we've really built this as looking at it from the enablement side more than just the service side. So we can go into businesses and help them with SEO. But if we don't really explain the how and the why and the impact, we see that often these programs and projects fail or get frustrated because the leadership or the people making the decisions don't really understand the impact of what organic discoverability can do to brand awareness and pipeline. Yes. So that's a little bit about where we are today. We're located in Buenos Aires, Argentina, which makes things a little bit more interesting.
Very nice.
Most of our team is in EST. We service the US, Canada, Europe, and a little bit of Australasia. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful. So we're obviously interested from an AI perspective. We are very big on AI as a tech business. When did you, I guess, start to see that transition, that things were changing?
Yeah, so 2024, November 2024, I think was D-Day for AI search, because Google rolled out probably one of the bigger updates, which was creating featured snippets in search. This was done in phases across different locations and regions. And I think anyone that was aware of the first model of ChatGPT or any accessible LLM at that point realized that they, as a search engine, were trying to maintain their market share. They wanted to provide a very quick experience for searchers to find, brands or, content online. And the removal of what I call the 3 blue links or the 6 blue links, depending on what browser you're on, which is the legacy search, where you basically, all you cared about from an SEO standpoint was being in the top 5, 6 results. And now you really care about being, the AI discoverability. So I think end of 2024, it kind of dawned on me that this was going to be a huge innovation for good. I'm a firm believer it is for good, and I'll go through why I believe that in a few minutes. And in 2025, as basically the LLMs just rocketed, I started doing more and more, education, webinars, sharing my experiences of how I see AI search transforming how we approach organic visibility and discoverability of brands through search. And also in conjunction with that, my concerns about AI search, especially in the content production area of marketing as a whole, not just SEO, because AI can often misinterpret, it can hallucinate, it's not perfect, and it can sometimes do more damage than good if there are not clear guardrails and protocols. So especially when it comes to, I think, content marketing, the AI is a little bit like a steroid. It can be used and it can do its thing, but if it's abused, it's got pretty large consequences. We have been very, very focused and disciplined about educating people about these guardrails and being honest. And I think that's really what has been a differentiator for us in the market, instead of just going with the current and going with the mass, which was like, let's just use it and embrace it without really understanding some of the downsides and opportunities. That's really what's positioned us, and that's what we've continued to support.
So you briefly mentioned there about these AI overviews and the fact that they're generating the answers. How is that affecting web traffic for one, and how do we get around that? Because yes, we want to appear there, but we don't also want the answer there, and they're not going to come and see what we're actually talking about in full.
Yeah, so you've really got two categories of people. You've got the people that are really concerned about the AI overviews just killing click-through rates. And I'll talk about why that happens in actual, in practical basic metrics. And then you've got the other camp of people, which are like, well, if that person was going to click through anyway, and it's just a looky-loo or a non-commercial intent user, it doesn't, it's just less of that non-engaged traffic on your website. So there's two camps, and I think both have very, very clear, cases. I'm going to first focus on the camp of our click-through rates have gone from 5% to 0.5%. So they've been axed by 10. And that dilution of CTR has meant that traffic in 2025 across the board has just been drastically reduced. I've seen very few websites in my space that are in B2B that have seen an increase in organic traffic since AI overviews have been rolled out through legacy search. But what I haven't seen yet is businesses that are taking the right approach when it comes to capturing the users and converting them. I haven't seen a decrease in conversion rates. So what this is telling me is that users that are coming through to the website, that are clicking through, have commercial intent, have transactional intent, or have a high engagement, and therefore overviews is a quicker way for brands to get in front of users, but it means we also have less data because those people probably don't click through. They might click through at a later stage in their buyer journey. So it really just depends how you look at it. And I think a lot of businesses seen this as a negative, and I think it is a negative to a certain degree. But there is lots of upside opportunity when we transition away from informational search and really focus on what drives the needle, which is middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel.
So would you say, just saying what you've just said, I'm going, well, is it an advantage then? Because you're not, your web traffic immediately, okay, it's dropped, fine. We can take that as a thing. But actually, was it only high because there was all these people that had zero intent on actually buying anything? So what you're getting now is a stronger, more committed buyer on your websites.
Right. And I often say make each click count. So make each user that gets through to your website count. And that means, don't overlook your messaging on your site. Like general SEOs don't really talk about this, but I do because I think it's critically aligned, because if I bring traffic to a website, I want to make sure it converts. If not, I am only fulfilling half of the problem. So yes, when you get people to your site, you don't have a second to spare. You need to make sure everything works, everything is fast, everything is, you might say, agnostic to the what they're looking for. Everything is aligned, the right messaging, the right content, the right resources. But then going back to your question about zero-click searches, it is imperative for especially businesses that are in your industry, Calum, to transition away from trying to target the zero-click searches. So the keywords that we know are going to be zero-click. If traffic is a direct metric that you're tracking as the sole KPI for your success, then you need to move away from the zero-click searches. You need to move away from the keywords that are top of the funnel and informational. The issue with that is to build entity authority in a topic, you can't just focus on bottom of the funnel. You're going to struggle to focus on bottom of the funnel in legacy search. Now, when we talk about AI search optimization, we're in the golden days. It's extremely easy today to manipulate the AI search. You might say the AI search interface. I'm not going to call them a search engine because they're not a search engine. They're an LLM that is retrieving content from multiple sources. And that's why I do believe we are in the golden age of AI search. It's a bit like, as I said, 2012 was when I kind of got into SEO in the online space. 2013, 2014, you could spin up a website, run some content, run some backlinks, and you could literally be on the first page for pretty much any keyword, unless it's like a keyword that like Forbes is targeting, or something that or like Wall Street Journal. Yes, to survive, you're going to have to change your content strategy. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that users aren't finding brands in the AI overviews and clicking through at a later date. And then also those people, when they get to your website, you need to make the most of those users and make sure that your conversion rates aren't dropping.
So you just said that they're not a search engine. So where do you stand then on, is it AEO?
Yeah.
As opposed to SEO?
I may be wrong. I may be wrong, and there'll probably be engineers out there that will question me. But the reality is I don't look at it as a search engine, because first of all, to define when you make a search in an LLM like ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, or Copilot, and you start working with these interfaces, you can actually very easily reverse engineer how they are querying something like Google to pull content into their results. And I've actually done this. I've live demoed this on YouTube videos and on webinars, literally showing how you can very simply reverse engineer the titles or the keywords that the LLM is going to Google to search to retrieve the content and inject it back to share it with the user. So there are multiple sources, and I'm going to name the top 5 that LLMs are influenced by when it comes to B2B, generally B2B marketing and SEO content. The first is Google. Legacy search is still like businesses that are doing very well in legacy search and that just slightly optimize AI search do extremely well. The second is Reddit. Reddit has just been this colossal source of truth for LLMs. Why? Don't ask me. Maybe it's because Reddit and Google became best friends recently. I don't know, but Reddit has seemed to be like a big bias for Google. So there are people out there that are like literally trying to game the system. So they create Reddit subreddit threads or sponsor subreddit threads to kind of get their brand at the top of a thread. And so
Okay.
then the AI gets biased. So the AI goes to Reddit a lot. The third is all of the Google media properties. Google media properties are YouTube, Google Images, Google Maps. If you're a local business, Google Maps is so important. AI will look at the reviews, build sentiment around the reviews. They will even create, you might say, grounded decisions about whether a business should be a good choice for you to go with. For example, if you're looking for a local service based on the
Okay.
reviews. YouTube, social media has continually provided us with bias for the LLMs. So these engines are retrieving signals. They're retrieving content and data from other content platforms and search engines. So I really look at this as like the old world and the new world. The old world is we just cared about a single search engine. Now we need to care about multiple search experiences. And that's why I often talk about discoverability instead of just search as a function, because it's really about how is your brand being surfaced to users? And not all of your users are going to AI search interfaces or search engines to find solutions as well, because there are some ICPs that are just rejecting it. I have a customer who's in the healthcare space and they work a lot with laboratories. You will never find a lab engineer on an LLM querying things or services or products because they don't trust it.
Okay.
So you have to do your research as well. We've had businesses that have tried optimizing for AI search and saying, well, they're going to get, tens of thousands of clicks. And there's a trickle of traffic because it's still an early adopter and it's an early phase. That's why I think it's kind of the golden days. And that's why positioning yourself in AI search is positive for the future. Whether you're going to get thousands and thousands of users through your AI search is another question. But I think really search is all used to be about positions and rankings. And really now it's about brand recognition on multiple platforms.
Yeah. Because I think what was interesting there was when you were talking about the reviews of a business. If we were talking about our customers, so marinas and holiday parks, generally speaking, there can be a lot of them in a concentrated area, particularly in the holiday park side. So if they're searching for holiday parks in Devon, actually the reviews that they have are potentially going to affect whether the LLM is picking it up at all. Because they're going, you're bad. Actually, you don't look after your customers. You're not doing it. You're not getting picked up. Wow.
100%. And we've seen that there are multiple sources that they will look at as well, not just Google products and Google, you might say, any of Google's big media content centers. They're also looking at things like if you're let's say on Capterra or Trustpilot, or there are a lot of these different review sites where you are booking travel and you want to see go to an event or do a tour somewhere, and you go to these different sites to find experiences and purchase experiences. Let's say you want to go and do a tour around Big Ben, I don't know,
Yeah.
and you go and look at the vendors on these marketplaces that are offering their tours around Big Ben. As just an example, I'm just putting it in the tourism category, right? They will look at the vendors on the market citation, on the listicles, and the LLM will define based on the reviews whether it is a good option for you as a user to go with. So management of sentiment is like absolutely impressive. Like it is absolutely imperative. Like you're not going to get through this age if you can't figure out how you manage that. Because if you are a B2C service industry, you're in the B2B service industry, ultimately what you care about is the user giving you positive feedback or contributory feedback and managing that appropriately, because that's literally bias. That's the AI bias is being built from that.
Because 9 times out of 10, people only go to leave a review if they're mad with the company.
Well, you can. That's a good thing though, because I talked with a guy upstate New York, and he has a big, pretty large, one of the larger roofing companies. And one of the things that he's done like in the last 2 years, and he's now, I think he's got 6,000 reviews on his page, and he incentivizes any service, any conversation, anything, any interaction with the brand, he incentivizes them to leave a review. So you don't always need to be a customer to leave a review. You could be dropping by an RV park and say, "Hey, I just want to check in. Like, what are the prices? What services do you offer?" I mean, I went camping in the week, couple of weeks ago. I was actually in early Jan, and I would stop by the campgrounds because I like fly fishing, and I'd ask them like, "Hey, do you have any other people at fly fishing here? What's their feedback? How's it been this season?" And you could even you could ask me and say, "Hey, sure, this is what's going on with at the moment in the campground, the fly fishing. Who are there fishing this and not fishing that?" And then you could say, would you be open just to dropping a review, even if you just pop past? Doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Yeah.
It don't always need to be a transaction to create a review, and that's a big distinction. Now, I know people are going to be against me and say, "Oh no, you have to be a customer." To a certain extent, if you're a positive brand to engage with, not everyone buys. You go to a store, let's say you go and buy a pair of trainers, and you go into a store and you're just checking out like prices, and they're very rude and they're like really in your face, and you feel uncomfortable. That you would leave a negative review. So why wouldn't you leave a positive review if you just went in to check the price because you want to come back on Saturday and buy it with your partner? So you have to think about sentiment and reviews, especially for B2C, as liquid gold. Like for me, that's how you. But that's how you really can inject bias into the LLMs.
What do you think's happening behind the scenes that nobody's seeing, no one's ready for yet? What's coming?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know a lot about what's coming. I just try to kind of focus on what we can manage in the present. But I think there are two things I saw at the last conference I was at that really shocked me. The first is native search through things like Ray-Ban Meta, through voice search, through interactive displays. I think that's going to transition how people experience and find brands and products and services. Basically, you wake up in the morning, you put on your glasses, and you're like, "Hey, I want to get a caramel macchiato on the way to the gym," and it just pulls up the 4 Google Maps and just injects them to your car interface. Your car interface takes you to there, and you pick up your order. How you're going to influence those types of interfaces, I think that will be very very disruptive for search. And I think again, the people that are doing the right thing will succeed. And I think the people that have overlooked some of these critical elements will probably struggle. But that's already happening because AI search, voice search is already a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You pull up your phone and you say, "Hey, I want to know about XYZ," and it will just pull up results for you. But when that becomes so close to the user, in the sense of a set of glasses or an interactive display, a voice search, that will be pretty transformative. I think that's a very big disruption that people aren't really seeing because there's going to be no listicles. They'll just
It
be
feels a
choosing the
little
top
bit
3 results.
like a Black Mirror episode. I don't know if the
I
one where
have.
it's the social media thing and they're like
Yeah.
they scoring each other. So if
Yep.
AI is doing that through glasses, it's just going to do it automatically based on the interaction you've had. Your business is rubbish now, goodbye, and just start
Yeah.
pushing down.
Yeah. And that's why listicles will be sunsetted at some point. Maybe for research, they will be a thing because if you want to go and find a really good book because you like the analogical experience of reading a book, when you go to the bookshop and you go to the section and you find the book that you want. I mean, I like cooking, so I go to the cooking section. I look at the different creators, and I'll find something I like. There may still be that listicle experience, but 10 years from now, I don't know if it will be like the way we've experienced it for the last 15 years. And the second most disruptive thing, which is already happening, and I don't think, again, organizations have really picked up on this, and it's just a matter of time, I think, until businesses really start feeling, is the limitation and the lack of data means that because of things like GDPR and because of different protocols and policies that are being made right now, it's only a matter of time until AI starts monetizing search. And this will mean that ultimately, like you're running search ads in Google, you might start be running search ads in LLMs. So if the LLMs are not pulling your brand in because you haven't optimized, you're now going to have a very limited data set. And let me kind of put this in practical terms. The easiest way to leverage, for example, Google Ads, and I've been in I've also dabbled in the online advertising space for many years. And the easy way to optimize is basically through first party data, which is either retargeting data or conversion data. And then you build audiences off that, whether it's on Facebook or Google. You start to build audiences, you create custom lists and whatnot. And then instead of just focusing on a keyword search, because often that's very high CPC, most businesses that really want to scale, they build proprietary data and they build off good quality data. So two things are happening. Google is restricting the amount of data you've got access to, and LLMs are potentially going to open up the opportunity for you to capture the data. So when that seesaw happens, I think businesses that aren't really visible in the AI search experiences will have probably a very limited opportunity to optimize for paid ads. So I think that's closer than we think. I don't want to put a date, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's in the next year, and
Wow.
that will be very, very big. I think people that are not aren't tracking mentions and prompts and citations inside the LLMs have no idea of how many times their brand is being appearing. Excuse me. Therefore, when it comes to mention advertising on these platforms, then how are you going to do retargeting with that first party data if you don't have any data because you've never been surfaced because you haven't optimized for AI search? So this is all very linear. Legacy search, you have to work on legacy search, you have to work in AI search, AI discoverability, and then there's just going to become ads. It's going to monetize. It's just a matter of time.
Of
And
course.
I'm,
It
yeah,
always
yeah, of
ends up there,
course.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
So,
And
if we're looking at
yeah.
disconnected like systems, we're talking about disconnected data. But if even the connections aren't set properly, how are we going to see the flows through from the disconnected systems? The data is messy. We're going to get unclear digital signals. How can we improve that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, establishing very clear technologies or platforms that you want to use for certain experience, to achieve certain outcomes or objectives in your business is key. I think I see so many small businesses just tied up with technical debt. I don't think that businesses can pursue or have the extravagant luxury of using technologies that just don't fulfill the role that your business needs. So I would say spend more time on the problem, on trying to figure out what is the technology doing for me or for us or for the brand? How can I make sure I'm making the best choice? I can give you an example. If you're using a CRM, for example, that doesn't work for your industry, the longer you wait, like the longer you push that decision out, the harder it is going to be to transition that in the future. So I think making decisions early, like ideally in the short term or medium term, is going to pay dividends. And that comes back to kind of the data flow, because good technologies that have limited amount of technical debt, you've got good data flow. And it's really important that you audit where your data is coming from, what you want to track. For example, if a prospect customer goes to your website, you enroll them in a workflow, you bring them in through content, and then you enroll them in a retargeting audience. All of those connections matter, but if the technology is not speaking to them to each other correctly, then you're obviously there's a lot of limitations. So I I look at channels. So you've got email, you've got your inbound, your organic, you've got paid, you've got referrals. And then so you've got all your traffic coming through. How you obviously segmenting that, having good Google analytics or dashboards or however you want to look at that. And then if you've got a CRM that is supporting with your ongoing email marketing, for example, or outreach, or however you're managing that, I think making sure that you're collecting the right data signals through the right platforms, whether it's like you want to de-anonymize a user on your website, if you want to send a notification, an on-site notification, which is something that a lot of people have stopped doing, but I still think is really powerful, sending custom content through a web experience based on a site activity. I think it all starts with the right technology choice and then auditing really those different work streams and making sure that the less work streams you have with these types of data flows, the better, because generally the more just causes more noise for the user. And I think we just need to really focus on like the ones that work and people engage with. And I think that also comes back to having good quality feedback loops. Years ago, I'd say 5 years ago, we spent hours on heat maps, looking at users on the website. Now I prefer to jump on a call with a user or a prospect or an existing customer saying, hey, what do you like? What don't you like? What are you okay with? And then really just collecting raw, solid, uncandid feedback. That goes so much further than just looking at pulling over thousands and thousands of users on your website and looking at heat maps. And that is for small websites and big websites. I mean, I have websites that are plus 100,000 users a week, and I have websites that are 500 users a week. And I don't think there is any differentiator. Like, hey, incentivize a feedback loop and just do 5-10 interviews and just find out what people like about about the service or product that you're offering. And that's a really, for me, it's the best way. And I think that there is a lot of energy spent often on these tools and technologies. So make intelligent technology choices.
We agree. Do you think usually? Absolutely. Thank you very much. Do you think businesses now can afford not to invest in SEO? I've worked for businesses where we've had marketing teams, but the SEO has not really been a big deal, I would say. Moving as we are now, what would you say to businesses that don't have an SEO specialist?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this might sound a bit controversial, but if I was starting a business today, and let's say if I was a SaaS and I was just starting out, I don't think I would overly invest into SEO for the first couple of months, maybe a year, because I think you can fast track eyeballs on your product or service in other ways that will give you quicker feedback loops to define whether or not your product or service meets what you're trying to achieve. Meets expectations of the user, etc. So I would say if you're starting a business today in 2026, I would focus on speed and velocity versus something compounding like organic. Now, if you have already an established online experience or position, then SEO is much more than what it used to be. And I think a lot of businesses are kind of starting to realize this, that it's so much more than just appearing first in a search engine. It's about reputation. It's about authority. It's about entity signals. It's about looking at where you might have weaknesses in your online authority or your online position as a brand. And years ago, again, as I said this earlier, and I used to just talk to users about clicks and the top 6 blue links. Now I'm talking to them about your domain authority. I'm looking at your reputation. I'm looking at how many times you've been cited. I'm looking at your performance. So your website performance. Before, people didn't care about core vitals or security protocols. They didn't care. And now they do. So I would think that it makes sense if you have a long-term project of being discoverable in search generally, because the data shows that sites that are doing their homework and their due diligence in legacy search are starting to do tremendously well in AI search. So as users transition away from a listicle experience to finding brands and move into more of an interactive experience, whether it is on Ray-Ban Metas or just on their phone or on an iPad or on a computer, that will define if you haven't done well in legacy search. Although you can still kind of get away with gaming AI search, I would really, really recommend that you have a very good legacy search strategy and you have a very good AI search strategy. But at the end of the day, what you really care about is discoverability. And the two things that discoverability provide is brand awareness. So recognition of your brand in different stages of the buyer journey. And I'm fanatically in this mindset of what stages of the funnel does search work best for your business. So you might not want to position content at the bottom of the funnel because people just go to a review page and decide. So you should be spending your money on reputation, for example. Whether you're a different type of business, you might think bottom of the funnel, this is where I'm getting users onto my website and they're going to click. So I'm always, saying what stage of the buyer journey is that keyword relevant for? What is this content for middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel? What are the pages going to do? What they're going to fulfill? I think that whether or not you have a strategy for legacy search, it's more about if we want to continue to surface our brand in AI search and in legacy search, you need to have some of these fundamentals. And then building pipeline is how does the discoverability contribute to opportunity, and organic reinforces so many other channels. So if you even continue to grow, let's say you started your business this year and let's say you're doing paid search or just affiliate, there's going to be a point in time where you're going to pivot back to organic search because you realize how it reinforces. And once you compound organic search, it becomes very, very profitable because you're positioning your brand in digital real estate. So the longer you wait to get into that real estate, it's probably likely that the price is going to go up. And even if it's just going to go up with inflation, it's going to be more expensive in 5 years. So I think it's a very, very smart time to focus on visibility. I wouldn't think just about clicks. I think about reputation. I think about authority. I think about your entity, your brand as an entity, and the signals that is pulling from. And I don't think you just need to spend time on writing up new pages and new content. It's more, how does it strategically align with the buyer journey? And how am I actually fulfilling the problem that someone might have when they're making a search? And that's when we can get into like, query fan out and prompt and how you get them into content. But that's a whole another conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, I do think it is vital. It's not fast, but it's compound and it has very, very high ROI.
And when we come bring some positioning into that, we had a conversation with one of the world's largest B2B and B2C marina publications a couple of weeks ago. We were actually talking about content within the magazine and sort of content that's coming up and using it in digital. And a lot of the time what they were finding is they were having to take the content back to where it was brought from to say, listen, this is the same as what this person said over here. This is the same as what this person said over here. The content was all the positioning of the marinas was almost identical. We could have just taken the name in and swapped them out and no one would have been any difference. Understanding what actually makes their businesses unique, properly unique, not just, oh, it's a 5-star this, it's got a lovely thing over here. What's actually unique? Is that going to help, especially with the AI search, push that out? Or if someone said like a broad search, is that going to...
100%, 100%. I think differentiators are positioning your brand, your business, your product, your service. Having a very clear differentiator gives you so much more advantage when it also comes to content and to keywords and to targeting, and having a very acute knowledge of the problem that you're solving and why you're solving it and why people come back and choose your product or service. For example, as you said on my website, I say learn SEO as a science because 50% of marketing is math and then 50% is kind of a science, right? And I think with any marketing role or any sales role, it's a numbers game, but businesses need to be more creative about how they go to the marketplace and position their products and services with capturing the interest, but more importantly, having a very distinct differentiator helps move your brand faster through that search experience because you're now, you don't obviously want to differentiate yourself with something that no one's interested in. But it doesn't need to be highly complicated. As I said, like if you're doing a campground, if I was looking for let's say I was finding a campground or an RV park, if they maybe had a boat, like I could drop my boat in like a slope, like a concrete, I don't know what you call them in the UK, a concrete slip. That could be a differentiator, right? Because everyone hates like mud slips, right? Because they're dirty and you got to get out of your car and whatnot. So that could be your differentiator, and you could market that. So it doesn't need to over-engineer things, but don't rely on just, I think look at what the market is doing and try to kind of see where there are areas for you to kind of, to position yourself. I saw a campground the other day that said, we have Starlink, and they had literally have Starlink
Okay.
poles all around the campground. I thought, well, that was actually a cool differentiator. You can market that. You could be the Starlink RV campground. You get free internet, and like you have, Starlink. I'm not saying that would be a differentiator, but that's an example of how you can take something. People are probably going to search internet quality if they've got a good internet at certain regions, certain areas. That could be your differentiator. That would also help the LLMs realize that you're a living, breathing entity and that you're showing a customized experience and you want to provide a customized experience to the users. So yeah.
And I guess finally, Jason, if AI became the main way for anyone to discover your business tomorrow, what would they need to do? I guess summing up everything you've said today, what would they need to do if they woke up tomorrow?
Yeah, okay. I think that is ultimately where I think the future is going to be. I don't think it's a matter of will it happen. I think it will. It's just when. Learn from legacy search because the LLMs are learning from legacy search. Do well in legacy search in the short term as well as you can. Invest in unique, high converting content. I would really say build up your entity so your brand is recognized for a very few amount of things, but a very powerful, like make sure they're powerful. So build all of your content and your keywords all around just a couple of things that you do very well and that is a differentiator. Make sure that your brand is recognized on multiple platforms. You don't need to be on all platforms. And someone asked me actually yesterday, I was explaining the importance of entity signals. So like, well, does that mean I need to open up TikTok, Twitch, YouTube? And I was like, no, choose one or two platforms who do well that have obviously open, available content. So don't create a private profile on Instagram and then expect the LLMs to pick it up. You might want to, but think about the entities you're going to choose and go all in on them. and definitely spread, yourself over 2 or 3. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. If you're a B2C, I'd probably recommend something like Instagram and maybe YouTube or TikTok. And don't underestimate your reputation. And the reputation isn't just always about reviews. There are other ways for leveraging reputation that have direct impact on organic visibility, whether it's in AI search or legacy search. Maybe talking with some influencers to kind of come and see your place and kind of provide feedback. Maybe talking to a YouTuber and saying, "Hey, can you do me a video?" And then mention it, sponsor it. Those types of activities, though very difficult to attribute, are proving to be a very qualifying factor in how the AI search experiences or engines, as you want to call them, are really using these LLMs to find brands and then retrieve them and then show them to users. They're just some of the things I'd think about.
And Jason, if anyone did need any of your services in the future, where can they find you?
My website, jasonpittock.com, and that's TOCK.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Calum. It's
Bye-bye.
great talking with you.